Hi, my name is Melissa, and this is my new YouTube channel, Saints and Salt. It's been on my heart for years to make a video of my testimony, and it's kind of long, so it's going to be broken up into several videos just for ease of use. But I want to talk about my journey to Christ and how it included being in the occult and ayahuasca and a healing that God had mercy on me back in 2017. And so, in order to tell my testimony, I need to go back before 2017 when I was lost. I didn't know God at all. As a child, I had a lot of nightmares, demonic dreams. Now that I look back, and I had a lot of confusion, especially when I got to my teenage and my years and my 20s. I actually had suicidal ideation, and I had been oppressed by severe depression most of my life. And so I was looking for that love. I was looking for that love from the Father that my natural father wasn't really. It's always an imperfect love. I love my father. He's still alive, but he's not the true father. And human fathers are flawed. We are all sinners. So I met my now husband in 2007. And from the time I met him, I wanted him to be my God. I think we women make this mistake a lot, and probably make it too, where you want them to be your God. You want them to be your everything. You want them to love you unconditionally and perfectly, and no one is capable of doing that, right? So, um, from the time I met him, I knew I wanted to marry him and I wanted children with him. But it ended up being an extremely long, painful journey, which of course I had no idea. 5 years later, after um, we finally got married, and we decided that we would try to have children. And it was 7 years of very painful infertility treatments, 5 rounds of IVF. And if anyone has ever had to walk through the infertility journey, it's a painful, heart-wrenching one, physically and emotionally. And I also had um, many years of insomnia, which was intermittent, but it was really related to stress. And I would go through periods where sometimes I wouldn't sleep for weeks at a time. I mean, zero, none. And also, if you haven't been through severe insomnia, it may be hard to appreciate that. Like, pretty much after about 5 days, your brain really, you stop functioning. You really become almost kind of psychotic and delirious, and my memory wasn't very good. And ultimately, this insomnia was so bad that I lost several jobs because of it. And here, in the midst of all this, I was trying to get pregnant, and I didn't really. I would say I didn't believe in God. I didn't have a relationship with him. I was raised in the church until I was about 10 years old, and then my mother had a falling out with a minister, and she was a single mother back in the 70s, so she was bitter about that, and he had betrayed a confidence, so she took us out of the church. And from that time, I was just without an anchor. I was just lost. I had no spiritual guidance whatsoever, which is probably why I got into trouble as a teenager, looking for love and boyfriends, and later on in my 20s, 30s. And then when I moved out to the East Coast in my late 20s, I started to drink, and I was partying, but I didn't like partying for the sake of partying. It was more just, I was looking for that love. I was looking for that peace. But so the insomnia was really bad, and it was quite punishing. And in the process of me trying to learn about how to heal myself and my arrogance, I acquired a lot of integrative medicine knowledge, and which I didn't know was God's plan at the time to use for other people and not myself. But that's another story. So anyway, I tried everything to address the insomnia because ultimately I knew that if you can't even sleep at night, how are you going to get your body, even if you force it and override it with all these um, fertility treatments, which are a huge override of your natural system, how are you going to get pregnant? I mean, it's pretty much impossible if you can't even sleep at night. You have no peace. You have no rest, as the Lord is the one who brings us rest, right? And it got to be so bad that I would have this anxiety that would come on as the sun set, because I never knew, was I going to sleep that night? Was I not going to sleep that night? Was I going to be tortured? Or would I not sleep for weeks on end? I had a job several during that time where it was one of my first NP jobs, and I had to be on call. But it was only once a month. But it didn't matter because that one night on call would ruin me. I would be awake for usually 4 or 5 nights at a time after being on call that one night. And then sometimes it was for even weeks at a time. So it was terrible. I was losing my mind. And eventually, the IVF wasn't successful. And eventually I just uh, was seeking out of desperation. I was just seeking out everything. I was doing medical cannabis. I was doing, melatonin, whatever, antidepressants. None of the conventional medications worked. So pretty much medicine had failed me. I mean, now how common is that? Like, medicine is, I mean, it's a gross understatement to say that medicine has failed just about everybody at this point. Um, and so I started looking at more like new age kind of options. Even I went to go see a cranial sacral chick who did some kind of energy healing. I sought out Reiki, and even like acupuncture, neurofeedback. I mean, you name it. I tried it. It was medicine, procedure, like these different techniques, tapping, whatever. So finally, nothing helped. And I sought out ayahuasca. I heard about it online. And I thought, I'm going to try this out of desperation. I think now ayahuasca has become popularized, but um, and this was what, 2015, so quite a while ago. Um, then it was obscure and hard to find, and also you knew that you were in for a rough ride. So it's not something that people do for recreation or fun or partying or anything like that. It's very often you end up purging, vomiting, diarrhea, and seeing scary things. Sometimes people go to hell, and which I would later see. But ultimately I sought out 3 groups out of state, one in Kentucky, one in New York, and the same group in upstate New York, or I mean, Connecticut. And you travel a long way to go to find these ceremonies. And there's this screening process. I love how the New Age operates off of merit and works. But anyway, um, so I traveled to Kentucky the first time to take ayahuasca, and I was specifically looking for healing from the insomnia so that I might possibly be able to get pregnant, because my life was in ruins. I mean, I was just constantly depressed, anxious. My memory was terrible. The girls at work had to compensate for me because they literally had to tell me things 3 times about my patients or about my day in order for me to function and to make it through my day. And I still work part-time, but there's also another reason for that. But anyway, so I went out of state and I found this dilapidated storefront where this couple was doing shamanic stone ceremonies or something like that. And they had cooked their own ayahuasca brew. So I guess they weren't terribly authentic in the first thing, but they although they did make me sign quite a hefty legal waiver, so I think they knew to somewhat cover their butts. And sadly, after I did that ayahuasca weekend, so what they do is they gear it towards like professional educated people, I guess, because in those venues, because they start Friday night, and they they get into the ceremony, and sometimes there's drumming and there's music. They weren't very sophisticated, so they had like recorded music from these shamans. But in the later ceremonies I did, they had live music, and they had these people, shamans, who were running the ceremonies. And it's like a pilgrimage, and before you go, you have to set an intention about the medicine. And it's funny because um, the whole of ayahuasca it's a it's a false, lying sign and wonder, and it's everything Satan does is a counterfeit of what God does. So of course Satan has no creativity of his own, so he steals everything that God has, and then he twists it so that he can seduce as many as possible using deception. And that is exactly what ayahuasca is. So you set this intention, you meditate about it, you prepare, you make this pilgrimage to, like usually to some distance to go find this substance. And then they, it's basically sorcery, what the Bible calls sorcery or witchcraft. It's the same, similar thing. Although, interestingly, in a lot of English translations of the Bible, they've changed the word sorcery to uh, from pharmakia to sorcery. The original Greek word was pharmakia, which is telling in this day and age. They're telling you what it is: potion maker, poison maker, maker of poison. So this brew is a brew of two different plants. One is a vine that comes up. They both come out of the Amazon basin, and the vine is very aptly called the vine of the spirit or the vine of the dead. And then they combine it with a an MAO inhibitor, or I might have that backwards. There's DMT and there's an MAO inhibitor, and the MAO inhibitor, in a nutshell, allows the DMT to cross over your gut, your blood-brain barrier. You can probably tell that I'm an integrative medicine teacher as well, and penetrate your central nervous system, because there are a lot of plants that have actually DMT, but your enzymes in your stomach typically protect you from them, and in God's great and perfect design for the body. And they brew it together. They cook it over an open fire for 7 days, and there's all this ceremony, or maybe 9 days. I'm not sure. And then they have all this pomp and circumstance. In the group that I went to in Connecticut and New York, they basically combined all these different rituals, most of them paganistic, some of them Native American, and they used hawk feathers to take incense and spray you with Florida water and all this stuff, just to get the atmosphere, the demonic atmosphere, built up as the sun went down. And literally, like, so the ceremony starts at like 10 p.m., but there's all this build up to it, drumming, and they're trying to put people in a trance state so that it's an easier transition to go into the spirit world, because what ayahuasca really does is it rips back the veil to the spirit world. And the spirit world is 100% real. It's more real than this world. In fact, everything happens in the spirit world first, and spiritual warfare is really true and real. And anybody who's had any kind of walk as a Christian for any period of time has probably started to figure that out, that we are living in a state of out and out spiritual warfare now. And ayahuasca is no different. And so they use the music and the drug, the potion, and it tastes horrible. It tastes like dirt. It's like this gritty, awful dirt taste, which is also appropriate. And you take it and you drink it, and it takes a while for it to kick in, and it might last anywhere from 4 hours to, like, in one case it actually lasted 18 hours. And I was under the influence of it when I was driving back, which is not good. I was completely lost at that point in my life.